the group. You always start off with Dear Senator, Dear Representative. If you're sending multiple emails to multiple people, it's Dear Senator. You got to know they're senators. You got to know whether they're reps. It says so in their title. When you grab that email address, when you go online and you look at these people, it'll tell you everything about them that you need to know. There's even the bio there. It's always Dear Senators or Dear Representatives. Put your message in. And the thing about these, especially at the federal level, legislators are overwhelmed by emails on a variety of bills. I mean, hundreds, sometimes thousands of emails fly in a day. They've got clerks in their 20s, paid nothing, who sift through these emails. So it doesn't matter. You can write 3 pages if you want, but you have to do one basic thing. You have to tell them, and it must be capitalized, whether you want the bill to pass in all caps, or if you want to defeat or kill the bill. Defeat or kill in all caps. That's important too, because when that law clerk is sifting through all these emails, and always put the bill number in the title, whether it's S368, S511, S699, HR 311, whatever, and you'll know what the bill number is because that's what you're focused on. Most important piece of information is that bill number. Goes in the subject line, and they're going to look at that subject line. Okay, it's about 511. It's about wastewater treatment and how the plant, they don't want the plant in their town, whatever. I'm just pulling up an example. All right, it's about 511. What do they want? Okay, they want it passed. Good. Throw it away. Next. And if there's 30 or 40 emails that look like that from that kind of, with that kind of a body message in it, they can very quickly gather the information they need to find out whether it's 80 people who want this passed, or 80 people who want it defeated, or 40 people who want it passed and 50 people who want it defeated. So that's kind of important. The Juris Wildlife listing that has been around lately, that occurred because South Florida Water Management District issued a statement to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and not to Florida Freshwater Fish Commission that they were finding Burmese pythons in the Everglades. A lot of people know how this occurred. It's been all over social media. That's where the injurious wildlife listing came down on. There's a moratorium on the one for ticks, but Burms, the 2 species of rocks, and the yellow anaconda can't be moved. But again, that's going to be overturned. Hopefully it will be. Everybody seems fairly confident that it will be. We've all read enough about that online that I really don't have to talk to it at length here. I'm going to touch on the Humane Society of the United States, and whenever I say Humane Society of the United States, I always say not a government organization. Whenever I put it in media, whenever I say it to someone, whenever I talk to them about it, I always say the same thing. They're not a government agency. They like to seem like they are. They are an animal rights organization. They have stated goals of ending animal use by human beings. That includes as pets. That includes tropical fish. That includes service animals for the blind. That includes everything. They have stated goals of doing this. They are our worst enemy. I'm also going to talk about Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council. They're probably even more useful than USARC is to the hobbyists because they have retail pet shops underneath them, and retail pet shops reach out to the general public. So when they do, USARC is just for reptile people. PJAC is for all pet owners, everyone. Tropical fish, birds, dogs and cats, reptiles and amphibians. I got an email from Josh about a bill that was going through. No, I actually got a phone call, then I got an email. I got a phone call at work from Josh from PJAC, who got my number from somewhere. Wanted my help on a bill that was moving through the Massachusetts legislature. They wanted to create an animal abuse registry. Now on its face, hey, sounds great, right? Animal abuse, who's against that? Here's the problem, because we live in Massachusetts, and this is probably one of the screwiest places on earth to live. They created this registry, and then they were gonna treat it like gun background checks. They were gonna make people check out potential customers who are going to buy anything from a pit bull to a poodle to a canary to a bearded dragon. You're going to have to look for this person's name on a registry of animal abusers. If they were there, you can't sell to them. If they weren't there, you can sell to them. Now I thought to myself, this is not going to go over well at a reptile expo when someone's trying to sell whatever to a customer and, oh, look, your name's on this registry of animal abusers. So basically they're treating people like us who breed and sell animals as police officers, as law enforcement. We've got to enforce the law. And what I wrote back and what PJAC wrote back and the guys I dealt with was, why not just make it illegal for an animal abuser to own an animal? Is that so difficult to do? Yes, it is apparently in Massachusetts. But they wanted to put the onus on the person selling the animal and not on the person buying it, which is typical. It really is. So that bill, I got a recent email on that, and it was sent down to committee. The words "sent down" are interesting because they usually, 80% of the time it means that the bill is killed. It's a representative's way of saving face. Sent down means we've got enough information on this bill where we might consider it later, but probably not. It's their way of saying, yeah, we screwed up and we don't want to deal with it, but we don't want to admit it to you. So 80% of the time it means the bill got dumped, which is good. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. In this case, it was good. Hopefully they'll use their heads a little bit better about what they want to do along those lines in the future. PJAC and USARC are both federal lobbying groups in Congress. They stand for people like us, so they're really helpful. All right, a little bit on Commonwealth of Massachusetts, what MGLs are, what CMRs are. MGLs, Mass General Laws. This is legislation. The thing I talked about with the IUCN Red List, that is legislation. That is still in play, but it's looked at by Fish and Wildlife as something that's not reasonably enforceable by the plain language summary that they put in there. So that's not something I'm worried about anymore. I'm not going to write another bill and have it removed, at least not at this particular time. Commonwealth of Mass regulations. Everybody knows that recently chameleons, green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and the spiny tail monitor were removed from the restricted list in Massachusetts. You can now freely own those animals without permits. You can sell them, possess them, do whatever you want. That is a Commonwealth of Mass regulation. Regulations are designed for change. They're designed to... Recently I sent an email to Tom and his boss, and Tom French and his boss, and I said, I want to have a sit down about rear-fanged snakes. I want to see if we can... I don't want them deregulated, but I want a vetted permit process in place so that if people want to own these animals, they can be vetted to do it. We did it with monitors. We did it with animals that can grow to be 7 feet and can rip your neck apart. How come we can't do it with rear-fanged snakes? So I sent that email out. And I haven't gotten a response because they're kind of busy with Rattlesnake Island right now. But I anticipate a response from them.
Especially when half the species already, it's like cut in half. Right?
Well, I mean, I'm concentrating on 3. I concentrated on Hydronastes, I concentrated on Boiga, and what was the third one? I think Aetula, which really is the whip snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. The regulations are designed for change. They're designed by citizens and agencies who meet together and just make a regulation, write it down, goes to the lawyer, he okays it, and then they publish it, and now all is good. So they're easy to change than legislation. Legislation has to be done painstakingly through senators, reps, people who may or may not be on board with what you're doing. So that's the difference between a Mass General Law and a Code of Mass Regulation. Code of Mass Regulation is done internally through agencies and citizens, and it works better unless you have somebody who's, like we had, it took so long to change these rules because of our last governor, who basically froze, and he put a moratorium on regulation change and amendments. So everything from building codes to sub shops to what kind of safety features you have to have in a Massachusetts whatever, all this stuff froze. People couldn't get work done. Waterfowl regulations couldn't be published. It wasn't just our stuff. And then, once he relaxed everything, then it all started falling down, and Fish and Wildlife was having hearings every week about, with 30, 50, 60 different things in one hearing, an hour and a half meeting. And our stuff actually came up pretty quick, and we were able to get it changed. So those are the differences between those two things. So a little bit on how people get in trouble with their animals. There's 4 ways. I added one. There's actually only 3, but I added one. You can have a house fire. You can have a drug bust. You can have a domestic disturbance. The 4th one I'll leave for a little bit later, but basically you have a house fire. When you have a house fire, police get called. Fire department gets called. People come in your house because it's what they call an exigent circumstance.